Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder here. It is Athletics Chat 104. Stuart Weir is in Zurich. He took the train. He was smart getting out of Budapest. I, on the other hand, took the plane, got to wait in line with 600 people in the small Budapest airport, did get home, but many are stranded in lovely Budapest right now. So, Stuart, you're a bit smug today because you took the lovely train.
Grüezi aus Zürich. Yes, my original plan was simply to go from Budapest to Zurich by train, and it took 11 hours, and we were just 25 minutes late, and that was partly due to a landslide closing
Wow.
part of the railway line. But,
Well, that,
I
yeah.
was sitting for most of the time in a very comfortable train with a nice man walking up and down, asking me if I'd like another cup of coffee. Would I like dinner? Would I like a glass of wine with it? So, yeah. So I think I made a good decision. But as you say, there have been some horrendous stories. And I
Oh,
noticed that some British athletes have seemed to have dropped out of Zurich.
wow.
And our legendary javelin thrower, Steve Backley, rather than taking 4 hours to get back to UK, took 54.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. What did you think of Budapest?
It was my eighth World Championship, and in many ways, I thought it was the best. Nice new stadium, pretty full most sessions, some expected high quality events, some shocks. I suppose it would have been nicer for the host nation to have been more competitive in more events. One felt a bit for the crowd.
Mhm.
But generally, yes, I would say it was an excellent success.
Yeah, it was my number 14. And it's not just because my family's from Hungary, but I thought they did a great job. I liked the stadium. The stairs, I estimated going up and down stairs about 20 times each day. Were
115 steps.
Yeah, they were rather arduous. And the my brother told me that I had increased my exercise 10 times. That was why I was tired each day. And so drinking a lot of water and increasing protein. But I thought that the announcing was great. I thought the competition was superlative. I thought that the fans were appreciative, even when athletes weren't Hungarian. They really did a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that for the most part, things went really, really well. Probably my biggest issue was with some of the media who seemed to, it wasn't as bad as Doha, but there's still some of the media who get stuck on their tangents. And I noticed that Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, who I was able to both interview, and they were very nice. Sha'Carri actually thanked me for a question at the presser, were a little frustrated with some of the media and just how they were being treated. And I saw a ton of the interviews of British athletics athletes, and they really handled themselves well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was interviewing all the Scottish athletes, and uh, that was fine. And I mean, I think I need to make sure I mention this early so that I don't forget. But I mean, 10 medals for Britain was
Yeah.
brilliant. It was six in Eugene. And I think, whether you think it was the right thing to do or not, certainly the team that Stephen Maguire and his colleagues picked did fulfill its purpose of
Yeah.
being competitive, having a chance of getting in the final in most events, and getting 10 medals. And just to put the 10 medals in context, Germany did not get any medals.
Yes.
France, and I believe that they may be hosting a rather large event next year, got
Mhm.
one athletics medal, a
Yeah.
relay medal on the last day.
Yes.
So, France and Germany are comparable countries to Britain, and
Yeah.
Britain came away with 10 medals.
Yeah. No, you had some fantastic performances. What were the most pleasing performances for you?
At Britain or general?
Well, we'll start with general.
I have been privileged to see Faith Kipyegon break 3 world records this year. I'm slightly lying on that because in Paris I was more downstairs waiting to speak to her than actually watching the race. But I've seen her been there when she's broken 3 world records, and for her to go out and win 2 gold medals. I mean, is there a better athlete in the world at the moment than Faith Kipyegon? I thought that Noah Lyles had a lot of pressure on him, and he delivered beautifully. Krauser started off again wonderfully, and lightning striking twice for poor old Jakob Ingebrigtsen to lose the 1500 meters to a British athlete, to a Scottish athlete, being passed 200 meters from the end. Remarkable, remarkable.
It's very interesting. And on the first day, Jakob was well behaved, and he said he actually came out and said that Jake and Josh were good runners. And then he made a little dig to Josh yesterday, which Josh responded to at the Zurich presser. My feeling about Jakob Ingebrigtsen is I'm a little disappointed. His Achilles tendon tends to be his ego. He has gotten to the point where it's helped him with other events, and people seem to forgotten that he finished. He had a tough time in 2019 in Doha. He's done very well in Europe, and he's coming up. But his last 200 leaves him open, and Jake figured it out, and Josh figured it out, and perhaps he needs to reevaluate the way he's approaching things. He ran great in the 5,000. I got the hundreds on both men and women were really interesting for me. Josh had been talking about, or Noah Lyles been talking about this since February. He told me he would do something special in Budapest at the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. And I watched him, and each time when I interviewed him, he seemed very confident. And talking to his coach afterwards, it was very obvious that they had planned everything out meticulously. And I, taking that word from Josh Kerr, Noah's coach Lance expected somewhere between 972 and 985, and he ran 983. And the 200 he expected about 19, he said 19.51 or 52, with the way the wind was very, very good in the relay. He really did well. Sha'Carri Richardson was a lovely revelation. She's been chastised by the media, and she hadn't delivered up until this time. And once she got out of the 100, she totally relaxed. I was at that presser with Sharika and Jackson and Sha'Carri, and with Gabby Thomas. And they were all, one so polite, but they all made it very clear to the media that when they get on the track, they compete. But when they're off the track, they kind of like each other. And this whole Jamaica USATF thing, they don't think is healthy. And when they compete, they're going to compete. And they could tease each other. They had fun. And I actually was with Sharika in the airport, and I complimented her on how she's handling the media. She smiled, and I said the same thing to Sha'Carri. And but you could see Sha'Carri relax after the 100. That 200 was icing on the cake for her. But those were wonderful events. I mean, US had 29 medals, and that was very, very good. Both 4x1s, I'm glad they got medals, but the handoffs were a nightmare. And the American head of USA Track and Field, Vin Lanana, asked the media to lay off the teams and just compliment them on their gold medals. Well, I compliment them on their gold medals, but it's like a train wreck watching the U.S. relay teams. You don't know if they're going to be, throwing it in the air or what the hell they're going to do, because their handoffs are just not that good.
I mean, it's a totally different culture for us because we recognize that we do not have 4 people as fast as the Jamaicans or the Americans.
Yeah.
So we practice the handoffs and practice them.
It's interesting stuff, yeah.
And Reece Pressod dropped out of the relay squad that he has before because the expectation on you to practice your handoffs. I mean, I think I wrote this, that one of the American team in Doha sprint relay said that they had received the baton from the athlete who gave it to them in the Doha really 2 times before.
Wow.
I bet that Amani Lansikop has received a baton from Asha Phillip 500 times.
Wow.
Easily, because they just do it. They drill it. They drill it. They practice getting their hands in the right position, giving the signal. And that's how they make up the time against faster athletes, by just being slick with the changeovers.
Did you get to talk to Laura Muir after her 1500?
Yes, she was fine about it. She said that she thought that if it had been a faster race, she would probably have done better. She thought she was in a good position, but when the pace suddenly took off, she just didn't have it in her legs to go with it.
Yeah. What about Keely Hodgkinson after her silver medal?
I didn't actually speak to her. I spoke to Gemma Ricci, who was in that race, who was both happy and sad, as she should be. She was rightly proud of coming 5th in the world, but actually feeling that she was close enough to have been in with a shout for a medal. I mean, I thought that was a fascinating race. Keely obviously had a chance of winning. I think we didn't really know what kind of form she was in because she hadn't run. And Mary Mora, who won the Commonwealth by going out like she was running a 400, then dropping to the back of the pack, letting everyone pass her, and then coming past them to win. So in a way, you never quite know with Mary what kind of tactic she's going to have. But again, she showed that she had the strength. And, I think that Keely Hodgkinson is a phenomenal athlete, but she's got 2 phenomenal opponents.
Yeah, she does. I thought Mary Mora ran the most mature race of her life. Thing Mu ran a brave race, but I'm not sure at this time in her life Thing likes track and field. And it could be she just doesn't like the media. She did a couple press things after the final. And I had thought it was Bobby Kersey's fault for keeping her out of races this year. I think Bobby's trying to find a tactic to keep her in the sport. I think she is not happy being in the sport. And that's the same thing I think that's going on with Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. I think Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the ability that Sydney has to control any interaction with media. She denies most press conferences. She did a wonderful thing for us in New York, and then her and her husband Andre put out a video, and they're lovely people. But I think that Sydney's been in the eyeballs of the sport most of her life, and many of the people around her are trying to take something from her. So she's always very curious about that and careful. And I think a Thing has gotten to the point where, and many people don't remember, a Thing had a rather traumatic childhood. They don't take that into consideration with all these things. And I have seen her be incredibly happy and open at different things, but not this year. And I hope that what's ever bothering her, Bobby and her can figure out, because she's a wonderfully talented athlete and a wonderful story to the sport. And I think she got the bronze medal despite all the craziness this year. I think she probably knows that she's this close to gold in Paris if she can put it all together, but we have to see,
Yeah. Something I'd like to ask you about.
Sure.
And that is the marathon.
Okay.
We had the problems in Doha that they had to run the marathon at midnight because it was a hot country. And we had this freakish hot weather in Budapest. And the marathon started at 7 a.m. But there were an awful lot of dropouts. I had gone to the women's to speak to one athlete who went through in a wheelchair and was far from being the only one.
Yeah.
And even those who were coming through walking were often being supported and often struggling to be coherent in interviews. So how do we manage to run championship marathons without endangering the health of athletes?
Then they really need to take into consideration two things. If they want to have the championship marathons and race walks during the summers, then they need to do it at night, or they need to do it much earlier in the morning. On the U.S. women's side, Lindsay Flanagan surprised many. She told people in interviews afterwards that for 4 weeks she had been spending time in saunas, preparing herself for the onslaught.
Mm-hmm.
Akira D'Amato, one of our top athletes, former American record holder, ended up running a 2:31:52. She had actually run a 2:19:12 in the past.
Mm-hmm.
On the men's side, Zach Penning ran a brilliant race. He started out in 39th and he finished in 13th in 2:11, and his best is 2:09. The guys in front of him were 2:04 and 2:05 runners running 2:09. It's going to kill an athlete one of these days, and they're doing some of this for TV. The U.S. Olympic trials are coming up, and they're going to hold them at noon in a southern Florida city in February, when it could be 80 degrees. Now, my thought is, if they're going to race in Paris, and it's going to be hot in Paris, and it's going to be a technical course, maybe that's the athletes we'll get a better team of athletes. However, Seb did say something about in the presser before the event, and I posted that he is seriously considering doing the marathons and the walks at another time of the year when it's safer for the athletes because of the global warming. I think it's putting people in danger. I know that on day 8, in my own experience, each day was averaging about 90 to 92 degrees in the evenings, and we'd get in and it would cool down a little bit, and it was almost like China at the as it cooled down and the sweat kind of cooled us down.
Yeah.
But I got dizzy on day 8 during the evening session. Justin, was Legat, one of our riders, was with me, got me a couple more bottles of water, but I was sick to my stomach, and that's just me walking up and down stairs, that kind of a thing, doing an elite athlete deal. I remember my running career being in the U.S. Championships, and the athlete in front of me literally went down for the count. I was struggling at the time. I stopped and waited with him until we got him on an emergency truck, but he needed an IV and everything. It was about 85 to 90 degrees that day, and I went from running just under 6-minute pace to about 8-minute pace, like that. And when your body is shut down, you absolutely know that you don't have a chance in heck of coming back. So that athletes that performed well, I thought it was incredible, but I also think it was playing with fire.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it was unseasonably hot, but I think we have to take this into consideration. And, there's all the criticism of Doha, but for everyone, it was actually hotter in Budapest than Doha.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing that was trying to, I was drinking 14 to 16 bottles of water a day. No alcohol. I limited myself to two cups of coffee in the evening when I was doing podcasts with Michael. But it was challenging. Budapest was a lovely city, but the crowds were incredible.
Yes.
And what was really nice, Stuart, is how many families. And one of my buddies, Dan Gruber, he and his fiancee Nerfi were over in Budapest, and he had gotten for $300 US tickets for both of them to each session for all 9 days.
Yeah,
and he didn't go to Eugene the year before because it was $250 a session, and he just so Budapest priced itself well. I thought the hotel I stayed in, I was in a little Hilton that was wonderful in the city center, and it was 1/3 the cost of the Eugene Hilton, the one that I had thought about staying in for the pre. I found a rather dilapidated Motel 6 that I'll be staying at, but
Yeah.
it's clean and it'll work, at 172 as opposed to $542. And I believe that most of my European friends will not be in Eugene, unfortunately, because nothing to do with the quality of the meat, but until Tracktown, until the LOC tells these hotels to stop being greedy bastards,
Mm.
it's just out of control. And the
Yeah.
airfare to Eugene, and
Yeah.
that's even
Well,
more
you've summed
expensive
up
than
you've
Budapest.
summed up exactly why I'm missing the Diamond League final for the first time in years.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. Yeah, I've gone to 35 of the last 37 Prefontaines, and I really wanted to go this year. I missed a couple due to my heart surgeries, and so I'm very happy to be back. But it's I'm using some miles. I found an inexpensive way to do it, and that's what I'm going to do. I want to
Mm.
talk to you about Dina Asher Smith. Talk to me
Mm.
about Dina. What's going on?
Dina is one of those athletes who is very much managed and a very private person who doesn't give much away.
Right.
I was not surprised that she wasn't close to a medal because, the times that she has run this year, we're not going to win medals. Her best in the 100 is 10:83, 85. And, that was good enough to get you a medal in 2019. But, when Jamaicans and Americans are running 10:6s and 10:7s, it's moved on. It was interesting that Dina was not selected for our 4x1 relay team.
I was very surprised about that. Daryl Nita had a lovely world champs.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You see, I mean, people's personalities and all are different, but Daryl, and also I've known Daryl since he was quite young. She's really a very open person to talk to. And, you know, she's only started running the 200 seriously in the last year, 18 months. And she said, it's ridiculous for me to say this, but I'm disappointed not to get a medal. I know realistically I had no chance of getting a medal, but I'm still disappointed. And I thought that's a lovely attitude, to have the realistic assessment of herself, but still to be thinking, I'm in the race, I've got a chance.
Yeah.
And people who know a lot more than I do about sprinting think that Daryl, who really broke into the sub 11 club and did it consistently, will actually, over the next 2 or 3 years, become a better 200 runner than a 100. And so I would expect to see her over the next 2 or 3 years getting into the medals at global events, certainly at the 200 and possibly even the 100. I mean, she's got to find a bit. Her PB for the 100 is 10:9, and again you got to go down a bit there. But there are things I admire about her greatly, that her willingness to go to America because she thought that would help her career. And then when the situation with her then coach became untenable, she instantly left and found Marco Aureli in northern Italy. And I mean, she just says the nicest things about him in terms of, I found the coach for the rest of my career. I found somebody who's as passionate about track and field as I am. I found someone who simply wants to make me better. And she was the first to go, as far as I know. But now there's people like Adam Jamili, Jeremiah Azu, and other British athletes. So there's quite a little group there. And I'm excited to see. I mean, tomorrow night, or in Zurich, Daryl is running the 100 and the 200 in the same meet. I think she's the only one who's doing that.
That's
So
very cool.
I'm be fascinated to watch her development over the next 2 or 3 years.
The you talked about Ryan Krauser earlier, I don't think the media's given the seriousness to it that the blood clots he had in his leg were a big issue. Elliot Denman, one of our 89-year-old rider who has been to every world champs except this one, he's decided with some thought that he was going to have to miss Budapest, and I was sad that he wasn't there. I wanted you to get a little time with him. He's lovely. He writes like an E.E. Cummings poem, but he wrote a piece. He said that Ryan should not have competed in the shot put. He said it's wonderful that he medaled, and he's very glad, but he's very glad that he's okay because he explained the medical issue. And I thought Ryan was incredibly gutty. I have a brother-in-law who had that issue last year, and the guy couldn't walk and was in pain for 15 days. And so Ryan, that's what some of the things we don't appreciate some of these athletes. I wanted you to talk about Matthew Hudson Smith, who had a superlative world champs. I thought if he was healthy, I had picked him for the silver, but I'd also picked Wade Van de Kerk for the gold. And Mr. Van de Kerk, I found out from his team, had a anxiety attack about 200 meters into the race, and just having a very difficult time.
I'll talk about both of those in reverse order. When I talked to Wade in Oslo, he said, physically, I am incredibly brave. I will take any challenge coach throws at me, and I'll give it a go. He said, the mental issues that I have dealt with since the injury are of a totally different order. The actual constant question, can I still do it? Is my body going to stand up to it? And I thought he was incredibly honest talking about that battle.
Yeah.
And, sadly, we can think of other athletes who've had that serious injury and frankly did not come back to the same level they were before. And I think that's a real question with Wade. Matt Hudson Smith is immensely talented, but has always struggled to keep fit. And he ran brilliantly in Oregon last year. He ran brilliantly again in Budapest. Did he go off slightly too fast, too early? Might he have got the gold if he had run a different race? Who knows? One thing which I think is really good about Matt is that Christine Ahorogu is working with him, not so much as a coach, I understand, but more in the mental aspects and just helping him to be in the right frame of mind for races. And of course, Christine, a double world champion, Olympic silver medalist, knows quite a lot about race day and going out and delivering. Because if you look at her record in terms of times against Sanya Richards-Ross, her great rival, Sanya was constantly so much faster, but doesn't have more medals than Christine, because Christine had this ability to deliver on the day in Moscow, to deliver on the day in Beijing, and so on. And so for her to be giving that expertise to Matt can only be a good thing.
Oh, yeah. No, it is. I remember Christine even earlier than that, the brilliant 4x4. Was it Osaka? It may have been that early.
Christine won at Osaka, the individual as well.
Yeah, it was just I would never bet against that woman. Oh my gosh. When I finally met her, it's like, wow, how do you finish like that? And she's just so mentally tough.
So the questions for those who are looking after Matt is how you can keep him getting better, but keeping his body in shape and not falling apart.
Were you surprised by Josh Kerr?
Well, I was amazed at Jake Whiteman. But Josh Kerr is an Olympic medalist who, by his own admission, let himself down in Oregon. I don't really know him. I enjoyed being on that press point with the British media, which I wrote up for you.
It's
And
wonderful.
I just thought that he was very honest in that, talking about the sacrifice he makes on a daily basis, the fact that he misses living in Scotland, he misses his family, even his fiance is in a different state in US. How he, the lovely bit about when he was recruited by the American university, he had to bring his parents with him because he wasn't old enough to sign the forms.
Yeah.
But he's made all those sacrifices, and he's gone out and got an Olympic medal and a world championship gold medal. And it's just an example of a supremely talented, extremely well trained athlete finding the the small hole in the Ingebrigtsen armor. And I mean, the comment that he made, I just sensed over the last 100 meters that I wanted it more than he did.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting. And then I was told something by it was Jason Henderson from A-Dub.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I got to see Jason and Ewan and Tim. Is it Mick Adams or Tim Adams?
Tim.
Um, Tim Adams rightly predicted the women's 200, and we put that in the article. I told Tim that he's famous in the U.S. now too. He really got a charge out of that, Stuart. So well done. Josh Kerr, when he wasn't feeling well yet, he just got over COVID in Eugene. He waved to the crowd in the semi, and in retrospect, he realized that was him not being ready. There was something wrong. He saw Ingebrigtsen do that in the semi. He knew that Ingebrigtsen had a chink in his armor. It gave him the confidence to make that move with 200 to go. And I thought it was, I was up in the American press row, and our friends Insidious, Cal Merber and Chris Chavez were next to us, and Dave Hunter, myself, and Justin. And I told Justin before the race that I think Josh Kerr could take this whole thing. So watch, it'll be the last 300. And I watched Josh starting to accelerate, but he didn't start to make the move till 200. And then they were exactly together coming off that turn. And there were two challenges, but with 50 to go, he did it decisively. And the crowd went nuts, And so it was one, for me, it was the most satisfying 1500 men's final I can recall since 1972, when I got to first watch Pekka Vasala and Kip Keino. They ran a 146 last 800, stride for stride with each other. There's these beautiful pictures as they are going for it. It's all out. It is a battle of the champions. And that's what that race was. I don't think that Jakob could have done anything to beat Josh that day. American Bill Toomey, who won the gold medal in 1968 in Mexico in the decathlon, when there was this decathlon program in the US in the early 90s. I asked Bill one time, why did you win in Mexico? And he looked at me and he goes, Larry, there was a lot better decathletes, but I coveted it the most. And he used that word, Josh used the word that he and Danny Mackey, his coach, looked at the race meticulously, and it was very precise. And he was trying to give a message with that. And it is a message for coaches in all events to understand. It's what Lance Brauman does with Noah Lyles and what he did with Shawnee Miller-Weibo when he was coaching Shawnee. It's what Dennis Mitchell has done with Sha'Carri Richardson. It's what many of the great coach-athlete relationships. It seems to me that Gemma Reekie is finally in a place where she's very happy. She's running well, and I do see medals in her future. Keely Hodgkinson, obviously, with I got to see Jenny for a minute or two. I haven't got to meet Jenny's husband, Keely's coach, Trevor, but I am totally impressed with the way that he has developed this young woman. Her presence of mind to come in on the inside in that 800, Stuart, was brilliant. But I want to talk about an event that's near and dear to you and me, the women's pole vault. It is our most popular story. Just so you know, Abby Steiner has been the record for the most read pieces, most read stories and comments for a year now. And in 24 hours, It's now 48 hours since we posted that story. The Katie and Nina story will be our most popular story ever. What is so special about that pole vault?
I think we're very fortunate at the moment to have, both in the men's and women's, superstars who are really nice people. I mean, the first time I met Katie Najat, Katie Moon, was when we were on our way to Doha, and we were in the same transit lounge. And only then, for the first time, did I learn from her the anxiety she felt about whether her poles would actually get there and the constant problem. And when we arrived in Doha, the minibus that they sent to collect us was shorter than the poles. So the poles had to go in through a window and stick out. And just that. And also that it's an event which is very technical. If you've got an hour, sometime listen to Scott Simpson about the technical aspects of it, and the physical courage it takes to throw yourself up in the air. It's spectacular. The fact that we're starting doing it like tonight in a railway station where passers-by can get a look at it, and even if you don't have a seat in the arena, because it's so high in the air, you can see it as you're coming off your train almost. And yeah, I mean, I just think Bubka did an awful lot for it, as did Isinbayeva. But I think we've actually now got people on both sides. And I mean, Nina Kennedy at the presser today, or yesterday rather, was reminding us that she's only 26. Yeah. And if Katie Moon, as she has said, is thinking that she's moving towards the end of her career, here's Nina Kennedy, who's really only just beginning, managing to be joint world champion last week, and then to jump a PR tonight to win in the station. So, we used to think that Sandy Morris and before her Stefanidi were almost unbeatable. Then suddenly Katie Moon has won 3 majors in a row. And Nina Kennedy has said, excuse me, don't forget me. So I just think we seem to be finding more and more really talented athletes and who are nice people and come across really well. And I mean, I haven't even spoken about Mondo.
Yeah, no, Mondo is probably the kindest, most thoughtful. He thanks the crowd every time. He really gets disappointed when he doesn't perform. He really wanted to clear 623, and but also notice his judicious attempps. Several, he kept it to, I'm going to clear, I'm going to clear, I'm going to clear, I'm going to clear, and boom, then this is the challenge. A lot of other athletes had worn them out by then, and I've got to go back and count how many attempts Katie and Nina made, but my gosh, they made a lot.
I'm amused that you're talking about him not delivering when he was doing 610. I mean, it just shows, if you pardon the pun, how high the bar is.
Oh yeah, no, his 610 was brilliant, and his 610 won it. And then he challenged himself and tried for a new world record. And I have to be careful because I have been. I saw somebody put up, Jonathan Galt from Let's Run, that he said, simply because Noah Lyles didn't break Usain Bolt's world record, Usain, he has a new appreciation of Usain. And Usain Bolt put a note out that the era of Bolt is still going. And I disagree. One, Usain Bolt doesn't compete anymore. 2, Usain Bolt hasn't been coming to championships. And 3, shame on Puma, who has him as an ambassador and doesn't bring one of the most popular people in. And Usain's wonderful. And to have him have given the medal to Noah Lyles would have been incredible global TV. And I don't know why. I mean, World Athletics is doing so many wonderful things. I seem to recall past Olympians and stuff, actually, like I remember a sprinter who won 4 medals in Los Angeles, wanting $50,000 from World Athletics to show up at a World Championships a few years ago. And they just said, no, thank you. But if we're going to build the sport, and we have this wonderful sport. How do we bring it to the next? How do we bring a professional part of it? Because the World Championships show and prove great TV audience and great TV, incredible spectacles, great stars. I mean, Stuart, you were writing 2 to 3 columns a day. I was editing 14 a day. I still have 70 video clips to put up. And I want to get your pieces up today. And your Josh Kerr piece was really fun because it really gave people, because a lot of people around the world are interested in Josh. But yeah, Great Britain had a wonderful championships. The U.S. had a wonderful championships. 46 countries, per Ben Bloom, had medals. There were 200 countries there. 94 of them had one athlete, and there were 400,000 tickets sold. And the ticket pricing was correct. There's a guy named Balash Nemeth. He was the director of communications for the LOC. He should really get a congrats because he built the promo for the entire year. Gene did nothing like that. Most of the championships in the past have done nothing like that. Just putting stuff out digitally. And there were signs all over Budapest, We were on the Buda side and the Pest side and all along the Danube, there was stuff. And so they did a wonderful job, and Hungarians knew about the championships,
An athlete said to me today that anytime they went out in Budapest, people would say, "Are you athletes? Are you here for the World Championship?" Whereas last year in Eugene, they went down the street and people said, "World Championships? Really? Is that happening here?"
Oh, yeah. No, that was the saddest thing for me because the U.S. had this opportunity to really build the sport, and the LOC didn't do it. Tracktown didn't do it. You can say it was COVID, but within a mile of the University of Oregon, I was staying 2 miles away. There was no activity, no promotion, and every night I went to grab a coffee or grab a dinner, there was no wait. And this is in Springfield. And I just didn't understand. And that the U.S., I asked Seb the question at the presser, the Olympics are in the U.S. in 2028. Where could you see an Olympics or World Champs in 27? And I suggested Mount Sac. And he didn't even bring, he had said before in a couple press things that there were some challenges with Eugene, and he was right. And they've waited a year to say, that Eugene could have, there were some issues. But he said if we were going to do it in the U.S. again, he wants it on the Eastern Seaboard, so it's good for TV, which means that there's very few places to do it. There's a university on Long Island that you might be able to do it that seats 40,000, but that's about it. And so what do we do? So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think that the chance for us to grow track in the U.S. Was compromised last year. I encourage USATF to continue to build some wonderful meets like they just did in New York and in LA and grow that. But I got your releases every day, from British Athletics. I got releases several times a day from Gareth. Well done, precisely written. I got updates from World Athletics. Well done, precisely written. I reached out to the head of communications at USATF and said, "Why aren't you sending press releases out?" She goes, "Oh, we are. They're just on the site. We didn't want to fill stuff up like World Athletics." They have been doing this for years. There's an arrogance or a lack of understanding, or just they don't care, where they do not understand that when you are covering an event and you're not just doing some interviews in the mix zone, when you're covering an event, information needs to come to you because I've got seconds looking at stuff, and they missed out on incredible opportunities. We came up with stuff. I pulled it from World Athletics stuff because I just wasn't going to waste the time to go to the USATF site. It was just very, very frustrating. You have now made it almost 50 minutes, dear friend, and I know it's getting late. Final thought this week on Athletics Chat 104?
A great World Championship, and let's hope the season ends well.
Yes, and so you'll be in Zurich, and you'll be in Brussels. You're in Zurich, Brussels, and then I'll be at Pre. You're going to take a break. I'm going to take a after pre, I'm going to Lisbon for 2 weeks and just vegetating with my girlfriend. I promised her to limit
Good.
my phone work or business work to 1 hour a day. And I'm going to keep that promise. So
Good.
we all need a break. But Stuart, thank you so much. It was great seeing you in
Right.
lovely Budapest, and enjoy the meet.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. This is Larry Eder with Run Blog Run, Stuart Weir. This is Athletics Chat 104. Special thanks to Mike Deering, who puts up with us so well and manages me from driving him crazy. Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder here. This is Athletics Chat 104, the epilogue. Stuart Weir is in lovely Zurich at the Weltklasse, one of the most iconic and important meets on the Diamond League schedule. And I am in the Laren Hall in the global headquarters of Run Blog Run in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. I returned on Monday from Budapest, and it was a rather challenging day of travel. The Budapest International Airport is a modest airport, and I don't think they ever expected a couple thousand athletes and coaches to come through at the same time. The Austrian and Lufthansa desk was overrun, to be polite about it. I was in line with Sharika Jackson, with Lance Brauman, with Sha'Carri Richardson, among others. Morgan McDonald, the Wisconsin grad 5,000 or NCAA champion who competes for Australia in the 5. It was a great group, but people's patience was growing short. I got on the flight with about 14 minutes left, and the rather interesting anxiety created a little bit of low blood sugar for me. So I thought I was going to pass out. So I grabbed a mango juice and I was fine. But yeah, it was special. And then 22 hours back. And so I'm feeling a little jet lagged today. I'll get in my walk. I'm drinking my water. And then I just had an athletics chat with Stuart. We talked about how wonderful the World Championships was in Budapest. And for Stuart, that's his number 9. For this is my number 14. And it's I've enjoyed every one of them. Budapest, I have to say, is my favorite. And Stuart said it was one of his favorites. The competition was out of this world. Great levels of competition, big surprises, every event. The crowd, 15, 18,000 in the mornings, 30 to 34 in the evenings, was better than I can remember for a long, long time, with the exception of London 2017, quite frankly. The access for media, mix zone was very well organized. The pressers, I would have liked to add more of them. The ones I went to, I think 4. They were spectacular, and Deji Ogiyimbu covered the rest for us. We'll be putting those up so you can see those. Mix zone, again, was rather chaotic. There's some fantastic examples. I think it was Talking with T, who's become a very popular person in the media world. People were rudely cutting into her interview, which I thought was a little too much. But that is, people want to report things, and we're on a 24-hour, 365-day, 24-hour world clock, and news is always happening. So what I was doing was posting 14 to 16 stories a day, editing about 80 tweets and social media messages a day, and managing photos in a group of 8 to 10 athletes around the world. We'll still have stories all this week to put up for you, new and fresh, fun things. And then I'm doing an analysis of every event on the U.S. side, and what we did and what we need to improve. So that should be keep me busy for a few days. I'll end the season. We'll cover Brussels. We'll cover Zurich. We'll cover some of the small meets, Padua, and some of the others, and we'll keep you informed on those. And then I'll be in Eugene for the end of the season. Then I'm going to shut down for a couple of weeks. We'll have someone in our team in Berlin, and we'll cover that, of course. But it's been a long season and a long year, and we've got 2024 upon us. So wonderful World Championships. Great team. Thanks to Mike Deering, who manages all the podcasts for us. That kept it fun. Thanks to my brother Brian, who made sure the site was working and stories were getting up and revolving. And one of our most popular ones is the pole vault story with Katie Moon and Nina Kennedy. Also, the Josh Kerr piece and anything Noah Lyles or Sha'Carri. Sha'Carri Richardson has been one of our most popular people of the whole year. If you look at our top trending stories, I believe 2 of the top 4 are about Sha'Carri. She is a social phenomenon, but I think she's now getting comfortable in her own skin. She's won the 100, bronze in the 200, anchored a gold in the 4x1. She handled herself with great maturity and composure. She has been treated poorly in many cases, and sometimes her reactions were a little over. But she thanked me for my question in the 200, and it was a rather simple question, but she felt comfortable about it, and we got to talk a minute or two in line while we were waiting in the chaotic Budapest airport. But Budapest is a wonderful host. Hungary was very proud of doing it. They picked up a medal, which was a big deal. I was worried they were not going to medal because they have a very formidable Hungarian team and a historically strong presence in athletics. So they did the good things. Adam Schmidt, who was the head of their organizing committee, and Balash Nemeth and their teams did a great job. World Athletics Media Group, fantastic. The LOC's media group and the volunteers were very helpful. Susanna, who's from the Czech Republic, one of the managers of the media room, was wonderful. And I've seen her at several of the other past years. And there's just a great group of people behind the scenes who really build the broadcast. On the Saturday, I did a BBC segment for BBC World Service with Ed Harry. They've included me in their coverage since 2008, and I enjoy it. It's one of the highlights of my year, getting calls and doing some work with them. So it's always a lot of fun. I will do my top moments and some of those things and post those. But again, this is Athletics Chat 104. This is the epilogue. And thank you again for watching.